You ungrateful child. You forgot who gave birth to you. My mother stormed into my Q3 client meeting, slapped me before 28 coworkers and 2 clients, and demanded $2,000, cash that second, because I hadn't made her breakfast. 40 seconds ago, I was showing numbers to our biggest account. Now, her palm print rose red on my left cheek. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't sick. She was 56, healthy, and she thought she owned me. She said 2,000 every month after this one, too. Everyone watched. I didn't cry. I unclipped my ATM card and handed it to her. She smiled. She thought she had won. She was wrong. By the next morning, she would be sitting alone at my kitchen table, still not knowing what I had done. If this is already hitting you in the chest, take a second to like and subscribe. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. I'm Delilah, 29, senior account executive at a marketing agency in Denver. This is the story of how one slap broke a chain 23 years in the making. Let me take you back to that morning. On Tuesday, July 29th, I woke at 5:30. Quiet, as always. My mother's bedroom door was closed. I moved through the apartment in socks so the floor wouldn't creak, because a creak in the floor sometimes meant a bad day. I set the pan on medium heat. I cracked 2 eggs and stirred them slow. I toasted her sourdough. She had told me last Sunday she preferred sourdough now, not white. And I sliced a peach thin, the way she liked. I poured a glass of orange juice with no pulp and put a napkin under the glass. On a sticky note, I wrote in the careful print I used for anyone who might read it wrong. Mom, breakfast on the counter. Orange juice in the fridge if you want it cold. Don't forget your blood pressure pill. I'll be home by 6. D. I pressed the sticky note against the salt shaker so she couldn't miss it. I stood there and stared at the plate. There was cinnamon on the peach because she liked cinnamon. There was a small pat of butter on the toast because margarine gave her heartburn. There were paper towels folded next to the fork. I remember thinking, this is enough. This is more than enough. She'll see it, and she'll be fine. And I'll get through Fessler at 11. And I'll come home at 6 with 2 carnations for the Vas, because she said last week that carnations made her feel young. I slid my laptop into my bag, tied my hair back, and left the apartment at 7:15. Denver in late July is dry and calm at that hour. I did not know that before noon she was going to end the life I had lived. I know because she told the family later, as if her sleep schedule proved something. She walked into the kitchen barefoot. She saw the plate, she saw the note, she saw the orange juice, which was in the fridge, because I had written "in the fridge" on the note. What she did not see was a hot-cooked breakfast in front of her at the table, steam still coming off it, the way she wanted her breakfast when she was in a good mood. She wanted heat. She wanted service. She wanted the plate to be waiting like a hotel room, and me still standing by the coffee pot to refill her cup. She did not want a note. She called me at 10:38. She called me at 10:40. She called me at 10:41, 10:43, 10:45, 10:48, 10:52, 10:55, 10:58, and 11 o'clock. 10 calls. I know this because I still have the log. I did not see any of those calls because at 10:40, I was walking into the 4th floor conference room and putting my phone on silent, the way you do when your quarterly review with your biggest client is about to start. I remember I set the phone face down on the table beside my laptop. I remember thinking whatever she needs will wait 1 hour. I had been thinking that for 23 years. I have to tell you what her voice sounded like when I was 6. That's when my father, Jonathan, sat me down in the beige living room of our old rental and said, "Delilah, honey, I have to leave, but I will always come see you." He didn't say why. He didn't have to. I could feel it every time he closed the door softly and my mother started her low, sharp breathing behind it. He moved to Portland, Oregon, 3 months later. My mother never remarried. She never got a job either. She said the divorce broke her back, that stress had triggered a chronic pain no doctor could see. And by the time I was 8, I understood that the reason she couldn't work was me. My birth had ruined her, and my continued existence obligated me. When I was 12, she told me I had ugly teeth. When I was 15, she said I was too fat to wear the dress I bought with birthday money. When I was 17, she read my journal and mocked the sentence, "I want to be a person my mother is proud of," in front of 2 of her friends at Sunday brunch. I got a scholarship to Colorado State. I lived on campus. She called me every night, crying, saying I had left her. In 2018, after I took an entry-level role at Crestline Media, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with her. I signed the lease and covered 80% of the rent. In 2020, she started asking for $800 a month to pay back debts your father left me with. I never saw a debt statement. I paid the $800 anyway. 3 months ago, in May, she told me it was going up to $2,000. She said I owed her that much because she gave me life. At 11:48 that morning, I was standing at the head of the conference table facing 30 people. Elaine Fessler, our biggest client, sat at the far end wearing a blazer the color of dry grass. Beside her was her assistant, Vaughn Prisk, taking neat notes on an iPad. My boss, Karen Alterman, sat at Elaine's left, nodding at everything I said. I was showing them the Fessler Home Goods Q3 dashboard, and I remember I was proud of it. The click-through was up 19%. The email campaign we had run in June had come in under budget. My voice was steady. My hands were steady. I clicked to slide 14, and then the conference room door swung open so hard it banged against the doorstop. My mother was standing there in her Sunday church cardigan, hair wet from the shower, her purse already open, keys jangling on her wrist. She had driven 25 minutes across town in slippers. At reception, she had claimed there was a family emergency, and someone had sent her to the 4th floor before security could stop her. She was breathing hard. She looked at me across a room of 30 strangers and said, in the voice she used when she wanted me to know she meant it, "You ungrateful child, you forgot who gave birth to you." She crossed the room in 5 steps. Karen half rose from her chair. Elaine's face did not change, but her eyes went very still. My mother reached me at the head of the table and slapped me open-handed across the left cheek. The sound was small in that big carpeted room, which surprised me. In the movies, a slap sounds like a gunshot. In real life, it sounds like a book being closed. My cheek stung and then went numb and then began to burn from the inside out. She was still holding my shoulder with her other hand. She yelled, 2,000, right now, every month after this. Every month, do you hear me? You will not leave me starving in my own kitchen. I remember thinking, I made you breakfast. I remember the peach with the cinnamon on it. I remember the note against the salt shaker. I did not say any of that. Karen was on her feet now. Vaughn had stood up too, iPad in hand, mouth slightly open. Elaine was watching me. 30 people were watching me. My mother was watching me. What I did next was not planned. It was what a body does when it has already left the room and is watching from the ceiling. I reached into my wallet, unclipped my ATM card from the little slit where I kept it, and held it out to her, corner first. My hand did not shake. My mother took the card. She smiled. She said, "Good girl," the way she used to say it when I was 6 and had done the dishes without being asked. She turned around and walked out of the conference room, and the door closed behind her with a soft, mechanical click. There was $340 in that checking account, because I kept my operating balance thin on purpose. She would find that out at an ATM in about 11 minutes. I sat down. Karen put her hand on my shoulder. I did not cry. Karen said, "You're going home. With pay. All week." I nodded. Elaine stood up and walked around the long table past the other coworkers who were still frozen in place and stopped next to my chair. She has the kind of voice that has closed contracts in 9 countries. She bent slightly. She said, "Delilah, I have a 2-bedroom rental sitting empty on Spear Boulevard. You take the keys tonight. No paperwork. You call me when you're ready to talk about paperwork." I could not look at her. I said, "Thank you, Elaine. I have a plan." She did not push. She squeezed my shoulder once, hard. She said, "Then you execute it." Vaughn brought me a glass of water. I drank it. I gathered my laptop. Karen walked me down the hall with her hand on my back. In the elevator, she said, "Delilah, I will call security. Your mother will not come back into this building." I said, "Thank you, Karen." My voice sounded to me like it belonged to a stranger. I got into my car in the parking garage. I sat there. My cheek was throbbing. I did not turn the ignition. I opened the Notes app and reread the document I had begun 2 months earlier, the week I signed the lease on the Highland studio. I had called it Plan A, because I still could not make myself call it leaving. At the top I had written, August 16th, Grandpa Walter's birthday. If she crosses the line, I promised myself I would not explain away execute Plan A. I underlined execute Plan A. I had spent 2 months preparing a door and telling myself I was not allowed to use it unless something finally proved I had a right to leave. If you have ever had a mother like mine, the kind whose love comes with a monthly invoice, do me a favor and drop the words, "I see you," in the comments. Because I did not know it that afternoon in my car, but a lot of daughters were about to see me too. I did not drive back to the apartment right away. I drove to the parking lot of the King Soopers on Colfax and sat in the driver's seat with the engine off until the afternoon had gone soft around me. Then I drove home slowly because I needed to know she was out. At 6:45, I parked 2 blocks down the street on the side road behind the Presbyterian church, where my mother's white sedan would not be visible from my rear view. At 7 exactly, she came down the steps of our building in a pink windbreaker, carrying her bingo bag. She got into her white sedan alone and drove away toward Colfax. I would not learn until later that she was not going to bingo. She was going to meet Randy Kellerman. At the time, I only knew she would be gone until after 11. I waited 10 minutes to be sure. Then I drove into our apartment complex, parked in my usual spot, and let myself in with the same key I had used for 7 years. The plate was still on the counter. The peach still had cinnamon on it. The eggs were gray now, a little curled. The sticky note was still against the salt shaker. She had not touched it. She had walked past it, gone to my bedroom, opened my drawers, gone back out again. I could tell because my sock drawer was slightly open and my second best necklace was gone. She always took my second best necklace when she was mad at me. I stood in the kitchen. I took a breath. Then I called Rachel Kessler. Rachel picked up on the second ring. Rachel is 30, a paralegal in a boring firm, and my best friend since junior year of college. I did not say hello. I said, tonight. Now. Studio's ready, she said. I can have the U-Haul at 7. She'll be out until after 11. Delilah, did she hit you? Yes. Copy, I'm coming. Do not honk when you pull up. Do not park in front, park at the church. Copy, I love you, I'll be there at 7. I hung up. I went to my bedroom. I closed the door behind me. I did not turn the light on. I stood in the almost dark and looked at the room I had lived in for 7 years. The room where I had cried at 19 and at 22 and at 26 and at 29. And I said out loud, into the still air, I'm sorry it took a slap. Then I got up and I started packing. Rachel arrived at 7:10. She parked at the Presbyterian Church, as instructed. She walked to my back door in soft-soled shoes. She hugged me first. Then she picked up the tape gun. We worked in the dark, one lamp on in the hallway, for 4 hours. Rachel took the books and the framed photos, wrapped in dish towels. I took the paperwork, birth certificate, passport, tax returns, my journal from age 15 that I had never let my mother touch again, and the laptop, and the shoebox where I kept every card my father had ever mailed me from Portland. In her bedroom closet on the way to grab the ironing board, I saw them, 3 men's dress shirts, size XL, hanging behind her Sunday coats, a bottle of Acqua di Parma cologne on the top shelf next to her hat box. I had seen those shirts in June. I'd seen the cologne. I'd made a choice at that time. The choice a good daughter makes when she has been told her whole life that questioning her mother is a sin. I decided her privacy was hers. She was 56. She could keep whatever she wanted in her closet. I had not asked. I did not ask now. I turned my back to the closet, took the ironing board, and closed the door. At 11:12, we finished. I walked to the kitchen counter one last time. I picked up the sticky note. I unstuck it. I wrote a new one on a fresh yellow square. Mom, I've moved out. I will begin sending $600 on September 1st, deposited to your savings account. Please do not come to my office. Please do not call my friends. If you need to reach me, write to the P.O. box in this envelope. Delilah. I pressed it to the salt shaker. I put the envelope with the P.O. box under it. Then Rachel and I carried the last of my life down the back stairs and drove away. The studio was in the Highlands, on the second floor above a coffee shop that closed at 3. I had signed the lease 60 days earlier, in my name alone, using a savings account my mother did not know existed. I had not moved a single thing into it before that night. Not a fork, not a pillow. It was a bare rectangle with a small kitchen, a small bathroom, and a window that faced the Denver skyline. Rachel helped me carry 3 suitcases and 8 boxes up the stairs. She put down the last box, kissed me on the forehead, and said, "I'm going home to sleep. Do not open the door for anyone who is not me. I love you." I locked the door behind her at 12:32 a.m. Then I sat on the mattress on the floor she had brought me from her guest room, and I looked out at the skyline, and I let out the breath I had been holding since 11:48 a.m. My cheeks still stung faintly. My hands were empty. I was alone. I was, for the first time in 7 years, alone in a room that belonged only to me. I do not remember falling asleep. I remember my phone buzzing at 1:20 a.m. That was my mother arriving home. I remember thinking distantly from the far side of exhaustion, whatever happens now is not my job to catch. Then I closed my eyes. I woke at 6 a.m. to 40 missed calls. 21 from my mother's number. 19 from numbers I did not recognize. Landlines, neighbors, a payphone I did not know still existed. I blocked her number first. Then I forwarded the unknown numbers to a spam folder. I made coffee in a mug Rachel had left me. I texted Karen. "Karen, working from home this week. Please let security know she may return." Karen wrote back inside 2 minutes. "Already handled. Cliff is on the door. Please rest. Take your time." I stared at that last sentence, "please rest," and I thought about how many years I had gone without permission to rest. I drank the coffee. I walked to the window. Denver was pink at the edges. I opened my laptop and I created a new folder on the desktop. I named it August 16th, Walter 76. Inside that folder, I put an empty spreadsheet, an empty text file, and a subfolder labeled Photos. I did not know yet what would go into the folder. I only knew that in exactly 17 days, my grandfather was turning 76, and that I would be in the same room as my mother again for the first time since she had slapped me. At 2:20 p.m. on Wednesday, July 30th, a little over 26 hours after the slap, my mother drove her white sedan into the Crestline Media parking lot. She parked in the executive spaces, illegally. She got out in a blue blouse and a fresh application of lipstick. She walked to the front doors carrying a manila envelope. Cliff Duran, who had worked security in that building for 11 years, met her at the glass. He asked her to step outside the vestibule. She did not. She raised her voice. Cliff, calm as always, radioed upstairs. Karen came down. Karen did not go into the vestibule either. She stood on the inside of the glass and said, "Deborah, you are trespassing. Leave the property now or I will call Denver police." My mother screamed at the glass for 40 seconds. Cliff filmed it on his phone for our records. Less than a minute later, she left with the manila envelope still in her hand. She left a lipstick smear on the glass where she had leaned her forehead. Karen sent me a signal message that read, in full, "Handled. She's gone. You are safe here." I closed my laptop. I sat on the floor of the studio with my back against the empty wall. I was still wearing the sweatpants I had put on that morning. I noticed for the first time since Rachel had left that there were no dishes in the sink because I had not eaten a real meal in more than 30 hours. I made toast. I ate the toast standing over the counter. Then I opened the laptop again. I opened the August 16th folder on my desktop. In the empty text file, I wrote the first line: bank transfer records, August 2020 through July 2025, print statements. Then I opened my banking app and I started saving PDFs. Each statement took a few seconds to load. Each PDF looked identical to the one before it. Same font, same routing number, same $800, leaving my checking on the first of every month. 60 PDFs later, I had a folder that told the truth in a way words never had. I closed the laptop at 8 p.m. I did not eat dinner. I slept in my sweatpants on top of the covers, the phone still in my hand, the ringer off. The first week was the loudest week of my life without a single word being spoken to me. My mother called from her own number, and I blocked. She called from her friend Marlene's number, and I blocked. She called from a number that turned out to be the payphone at the King Soopers on Colfax, and I blocked that too. She sent me emails with subject lines like "please" and "you are killing me" and "I raised you," and I made a Gmail filter that sent every one of them to a folder called "Do Not Open Yet." I did not open them. She messaged my Instagram from an account with no profile picture and the username momsheart_Deborah, and I reported it and blocked it. She drove to Rachel's apartment on Thursday afternoon and stood on the doormat ringing the bell for 11 minutes. Rachel watched her on the Ring camera, called me, and said, "She looks worse than I've ever seen her." I said, "That's not my problem." Rachel said, "Right." My mother left. She went later that same night to the diner where two of my other friends worked as servers, the diner where I sometimes met them for coffee, and tried to sit at a booth and ask them, one by one, "Do you know where my daughter is?" Both of them said, "Deborah, please leave." Both of them told me later. Both of them said the same thing when they told me. Everyone has known for years, Delilah. We just never had permission to say. On the 6th of August, my Aunt Denise called. Aunt Denise is my mother's younger sister, 52, a school librarian, thin voice, thick spine. She had intervened 4 times in my life that I could remember. At Thanksgiving in 2020, when Mom called me ungrateful over a plate of lasagna, and Aunt Denise took her out onto the porch and made her apologize. At Christmas in 2022, when Mom threw cranberry sauce at me for standing in the wrong spot in the family photo, and Grandpa Walter had to bang his knife against his glass to stop it. At my 27th birthday, when Mom forgot to come and then blamed me for not inviting her correctly, and Grandma Judith took me out to the back porch and said very quietly, "Baby girl, your mother has something wrong with her, and you don't have to keep taking it." At Easter 2024, when Mom scratched my hand in the kitchen over how I was cutting the ham, and my Uncle Bradley, my mother's little brother, 50, a corporate lawyer, asked her point blank, "Deb, do you need to see somebody?" Everybody had intervened. Nobody had ever known the full picture because my mother is charming in public. When Aunt Denise called me on the 6th of August at 9 a.m., her first sentence was, "Delilah, are you alive?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Your mother told the family you ran off with a boyfriend." I said, "There's no boyfriend, Aunt Denise. There's a studio in the Highlands and a slap in a conference room and a bruise on my cheek that I still have." Aunt Denise breathed in slowly. Then she said, "Grandma wants to see your face. Will you FaceTime with her?" "Right now?" I said, "Yes." The camera came on. Grandma Judith, 74, was sitting in the sunroom of the house on Sherwood Lane, in the same wicker chair she has sat in every morning of my remembered life. Her hair was pinned up with the tortoiseshell clip I had given her for her 70th. She had her reading glasses on the top of her head. Behind her, I could see the African violets on the windowsill and the crocheted afghan folded over the back of the love seat. She looked at me for a full second, quiet. Then her mouth flattened and her eyes filled with water. She said, "Oh, honey, your cheek." I said, "It's healing." She reached toward the phone screen as if she could touch me through it. Her hand was very thin. She said, "I asked you at your 27th birthday, and I did not push. I am sorry I did not push." I said, "Grandma, please don't." She said, "I let you go home with her that night. I have thought about that for 2 years." I said, "Grandma, you didn't know." She said, "I knew enough. I have always known enough. Every mother knows about the mother her daughter turned into. I chose not to see. I told myself she was too proud, that she'd never accept help, that I'd only make it worse. Baby, I made it worse by staying quiet." She wiped her eyes with a handkerchief that had violets embroidered on it. She said, "Your grandfather turns 76 on Saturday the 16th. Will you come?" I did not answer for a second. Then I said, "She'll be there?" Grandma said, "Yes." I said, "And you want me there anyway?" Grandma said, "I want you home. I want you to sit in my kitchen. I want you to eat my potato salad. I want you to know that a house of yours has existed on Sherwood Lane your whole life, and you never got to use it." I could not speak. Grandma said, "Say yes, Delilah." I said, "Yes, Grandma. I'll come." Aunt Denise, off camera, said quietly, "Okay." We plan for the 16th. On the 10th of August, my cousin Amelia Halbrook, Aunt Denise's daughter, 26, a nail technician at Glaze on Larimer, sent me a text at 9:41 that night. Earlier that afternoon, she had seen my mother sitting in her white sedan outside Costco for nearly 2 hours, crying into both hands after Randy stopped answering her calls. Amelia did not tell me that in her first message. The text said only, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Can I come over tomorrow? I have something to show you. It's about your mom." I said, "Where?" She said, "Somewhere neutral." "Corvus coffee at 10? Aunt Denise said she'd tell you it was okay." I said, "See you at 10. I did not sleep well that night. Something in Amelia's phrasing, "I have something to show you," had a weight to it that felt like the front of a wave. I woke up early. I dressed carefully. I chose a gray sweater because I wanted to look like a person who could receive news without flinching. I got to Corvus at 9:55. Amelia was already there, in the corner, a small laptop open in front of her and a chai latte. cooling beside it. She had bitten her lower lip raw. She stood up when she saw me. She hugged me hard. She whispered into my hair, "Delilah, I did not know. I promise I did not know." We sat down. Amelia turned the laptop around so I could see the screen. She said, "I saw your mom on the 15th of July at the corner office diner. She was having brunch with a man. I thought, I promise I only thought, that she was dating again. Everybody thought that. She is 56 and single, and I thought, good for her." I nodded slowly. Amelia scrolled to the first photo. A man in a navy polo shirt, late 40s, thick forearms, salt and pepper beard. My mother across from him, laughing. She had never laughed like that at me. Amelia said, "I took 4 pictures to tease you with. His name is Randy Kellerman. He had driven a delivery truck for 20 years and stopped after a back injury 2 years earlier. Nobody in the family knew about him. Then I saw them the next weekend, the 19th and the 20th, at Aspen Bloom Spa. I was there because a client of mine invited me. I took more pictures. I still thought I was going to tease you." Amelia scrolled. Spa robes. My mother in a facial. My mother on a lounge chair. My mother clinking a champagne flute against Randy's. Amelia scrolled again. A casino floor, Black Hawk, the 24th of July. My mother in a red dress I had never seen. Randy at a blackjack table. Amelia's voice had gone very small. She said, "There are 52 photos and 4 videos, Delilah. I was going to show you when the slap happened. Then I got scared. And then Aunt Denise told me tonight that you had left, and I understood what the money was for. I understood what the 800 was for. I understood what the 2,000 was for." I said nothing. Amelia said, "Show me your phone. Show me the messages your mom sent you in July." I opened my phone. I opened the thread. I turned it toward her. I watched Amelia's face as she read them. She read the message my mother had sent me on the 15th of July at 10:12 a.m., which said, "Delilah, honey, I have no groceries, and I have not eaten since yesterday. Please transfer me 200 right now. My blood pressure is dropping." The photo timestamp on Amelia's screen, the one at the corner office diner, was 10:07 a.m. on the 15th of July. My mother had ordered eggs Benedict and a mimosa. She scrolled to the message on the 19th of July, when my mother had asked me for an additional $400 because her hip was bothering her. The Aspen Bloom Spa check-in was 7:41 p.m. that same day, in Snowmass. She scrolled to the message on the 24th of July, when my mother had told me she did not have enough for dinner. "Please transfer, please. I am so tired of being hungry." The video at Black Hawk was time-stamped 9:02 p.m. My mother had a fresh drink in her hand and Randy's arm around her waist, and she was tossing chips onto a red felt table. Amelia closed the laptop. She said, "I am going to give you every one of these files, and I am going to say one time and then never again that I am sorry I laughed on the 15th of July when I saw her, because I did not know then that she was lying to you at the same moment." I nodded. I could not speak. I sat with Amelia at Corvus Coffee for 3 hours after she left, staring at the wall behind her empty chair. I sat there, and I ran the shirts through my head. The 3 XL dress shirts in her closet. The cologne. June. Randy had been in my apartment when I was at work. Randy had been in my kitchen while I made her breakfast. My mother had washed his shirts in the same washer that washed my work blouses. My mother had hung his shirts next to my pillowcases. My mother had used part of the $800 I sent each month to buy a bottle of Acqua di Parma cologne for a man I had never met, then put it beside her hat box and asked me for more. I had lived under a roof with a stranger for 2 months and had never asked. I had done what a good daughter does. I had trusted a woman who had told me since I was 6 that I did not deserve to be told the truth about anything. I got up out of the chair. I walked out of Corvus. I did not remember to pay. The barista called after me softly. "It's on the house, honey. Come back tomorrow." I walked 45 minutes back to the Highland studio. I did not put on music. I sat down on the top step outside my building and I called Rachel. I said, "Tomorrow, I need you to drive me to the doctor. I need a bruise exam and I need a psychological evaluation, both. On paper, formal, I have a birthday party to go to in 5 days." Rachel said, "I'm on it, 9 a.m. Dr. Ashland has an opening. Dr. Bellingham can take you at 1. I already looked. On the 12th of August at 9 a.m. I sat in Dr. Peter Ashland's exam room while he photographed the yellow-green shadow that was still faintly present on my left cheek 14 days after my mother had slapped me. He measured. He palpated. He wrote his notes in a legal format template his practice used for domestic incident documentation. He did not ask me why. He asked me how and when and where and by whom, and I answered in short, factual sentences. He printed his summary. He signed the summary. He handed it to me in a sealed envelope with his practice letterhead. He said, "If you ever need this in court, you have it. If you don't, you have it anyway." I said, "Thank you, doctor." He said, "You'll be fine. Bruises fade, everything else takes longer." But it fades too. I sat in Rachel's passenger seat in the parking lot for 11 minutes before we drove to the next appointment. Rachel did not fill the silence. She held my hand. At 1 p.m., I sat in Dr. Nora Bellingham's office. She was in her early 40s, with kind gray eyes and a soft cardigan, and a very careful pen. She asked me the questions clinicians ask when they are figuring out whether the thing sitting in front of them is grief or something older. She asked when my father had left. She asked when the criticism had started. She asked what my mother had said to me the last 3 times I had cried in front of her. She asked what my heart rate did when a phone rang. She let me talk about the sticky note against the salt shaker for 11 minutes without interrupting. At the end of the session, she typed for a while, quietly, and then she printed a summary. She signed it and handed it to me. It said in clinical language, "Chronic parental emotional abuse from early childhood. Acute physical assault event dated 29 July 2025. Presenting features consistent with adjustment disorder and mild post-traumatic stress." She said, "You are not crazy. You are exhausted. You are exhausted from having been told since you were 6 that being tired was the same as being ungrateful." I got up from her couch. I walked to Rachel's car. I sat in the passenger seat. I closed the door. And for the first time in 2 weeks, since long before the slap, if I'm honest, I put my forehead down on the dashboard and I cried. Rachel drove me home the long way on side streets and did not say a word. On the 13th of August, at 9 in the morning, Aunt Denise called. She said, "Sherwood Lane, 2 p.m. Saturday, Grandpa's birthday. Your mother will be there. Are you coming?" I did not answer for 5 full seconds. I could hear her breathing. Then I said, "I am coming, Aunt Denise. Set an extra plate." She said, "Delilah, honey, do you want a warning shot? Do you want me to say something to her before you get there?" I said, "No, please don't. Let it be at the house. Let it be at the table. Let Grandma be in the room." Aunt Denise said, "Okay, baby. Okay." I spent the rest of that day filling a canvas tote. Bank transfer records, August 2020 through July 2025, 60 transfers, $48,000, printed and stapled and highlighted. Dr. Ashland's sealed envelope, Dr. Bellingham's sealed envelope, a tablet with the 52 photos and 4 videos Amelia had airdropped me, screenshots of the 3 text messages my mother had sent me on the 15th, the 19th, and the 24th of July, time-stamped and paired next to the corresponding photos. I put in a cheap, thin binder. I put in a highlighter. I put in a pen. I zipped the tote closed. I set it beside the door. I did not touch it again until Saturday. I did not sleep well on the 15th of August. I woke at 6 on Saturday the 16th. I stood at the kitchen window in my studio and drank black coffee. I could see the mountains from that window, small and blue and permanent. I put on the gray dress I had bought 2 years ago for a client dinner. I put pearl studs in my ears. I put on nothing else. I did not want to look armed. I picked up the tote. I locked the door of my studio. I got into my car. Rachel texted me at 1:30 p.m. "I am parked at the corner of Sherwood and Larch. I can be there in 2 minutes if you text me the word tulip." I wrote back, "Copy that. Tulip is our word." She wrote, "You are not alone." I put the phone in my purse. I drove. At 1:40 p.m., I turned onto Sherwood Lane. The maple in front of my grandparents' house was already turning at the tips, even in mid-August. Grandpa Walter was in the driveway pushing a small mower along the strip beside the mailbox, in a plaid short-sleeve shirt and a hat with a sailboat embroidered on it. He looked up. He saw me. He shut the mower off. He walked to me before I had even closed the car door. He hugged me for 20 seconds. He did not say anything. Then he stepped back, held both my shoulders, and looked at my cheek, the ghost of the bruise still faintly visible. And he said, "Come inside, sweetheart. Grandma made 3 kinds of potato salad." I said, "I love you, Grandpa." He said, "I know you do. Come on." I picked up the tote from the passenger seat. At 2 p.m., I stepped into the front hall. The house on Sherwood Lane smelled like potato salad and butter, and the particular vanilla candle my grandmother had used since I was a child. My mother was standing at the far end of the hallway near the kitchen. She saw me and covered the distance in 4 steps. She grabbed my forearm hard enough to leave a red print. She said loud enough that the whole ground floor heard her, "My daughter is here, the one who left me starving, the one who abandoned her mother." I did not pull my arm away. I said, in the voice I use with a client who has just missed a critical deadline, "Hello, Mom." I walked around her to the living room, tote in hand. Grandma Judith was already standing at the arch. She stepped in beside me, not in front, not behind, beside, and rested her hand very lightly on my back. I put the tote on the coffee table. Aunt Denise, at the couch, stood up. Uncle Bradley, in the armchair, set down his sweet tea. Cousin Amelia was in the doorway of the kitchen, hands pressed together in front of her mouth. Cousin Alden, 24, third-year law student, was leaning against the piano, arms crossed, eyes on my mother. My grandfather came in behind me and closed the front door. My mother's chest was heaving. She said, "Well, tell them. Tell them what you did. Tell them you left me starving in my kitchen." I looked around the living room. I said, "Everyone, please sit down. This is going to take about 11 minutes. They sat. My mother did not. I opened the tote. I said, "First, Mom says I left her starving in her kitchen." I lifted the stapled bank transfer log, 60 transfers, 5 years, and set it flat on the coffee table on top of Grandma's cross-stitch runner. Between August 2020 and July 2025, I sent Deborah Marston $800 a month, 60 transfers, $48,000 total. Mom, do you dispute any of these numbers? My mother said, "Money doesn't matter, blood matters." Uncle Bradley, corporate lawyer, 40 years at the bar, leaned forward and picked up the top page. He looked at it slowly. Then he looked at my mother. "Deb, this is your daughter paying you, in writing, since 2020. My mother said that was owed. I said, "Second." I lifted Dr. Ashland's sealed envelope, broke the seal on the coffee table in front of everyone, and pulled out the document. I set it down. I said, "Dr. Peter Ashland, family medicine, examined me on the 12th of August, 14 days after my mother struck me at a client meeting. Photographs of the bruise are attached. His signed medical opinion is on page 3. Uncle Bradley, would you read the summary aloud?" Uncle Bradley took the page. He read, "Patient presents with fading contusion, left cheek, consistent with an open hand slap by a right-handed adult. Bruise timeline supports the reported incident date. No prior facial injuries in her chart." He set the page down. He looked at my mother. He said, "Deb, this is my niece. That is her face. That is your hand." My mother said, "I did not hit her hard. You are all making this bigger. I did not take Dr. Bellingham's envelope out of the tote. That report was not a weapon for the coffee table. It was a map of what I would have to heal from after I left." Instead, I looked at Grandma Judith. "Grandma, you asked me at 27 whether I was all right. I said yes, because I had learned that telling the truth made things worse." Grandma's hands began to shake softly, the way a hummingbird's wings shake. Aunt Denise put an arm around her shoulders. Grandma looked at my mother. "Deb, we asked you on my sunroom couch. At Easter, we asked you if you needed help." She did not need a doctor's language to recognize the life I had been living. She had watched pieces of it for years and called them storms. My mother said, "She is exaggerating. That is what daughters like her do." A long silence went across the room. Alden, at the piano, did not move a muscle. I could hear the refrigerator in the kitchen click on. My mother lunged at the tote. She was fast for a woman who had not worked in 20 years. Her hand hit the canvas and the tote skidded across the coffee table toward the edge. My grandmother caught it with her heel before it went off. My mother spun back toward me. She said, "You have nothing else. You have nothing else on me. Whatever else is in that bag is a lie." I reached into the tote and took out the tablet. I turned it on. I opened the album Amelia had put on it. I set the tablet flat on the coffee table where every person in the room could see the screen. I tapped the first photo. My mother across from Randy Kellerman at the corner office diner. Cinnamon peach garnish on his plate. Eggs Benedict on hers. A mimosa. Timestamp 15 July 2025, 10:07 a.m. This is Randy Kellerman. He is 48, a former delivery driver, and since June, he has been leaving clothes in your bedroom closet and spending weekends here while I was at work. I tapped the corner of the tablet. I brought up my phone. I turned the phone toward the room. I said, "This is Mom's text to me on 15 July 2025, 10:12 a.m., 5 minutes after that photo. Delilah, honey, I have no groceries, and I have not eaten since yesterday. Please transfer me 200 right now. My blood pressure is dropping." I turned the tablet back around. I tapped the spa album. Robes, champagne flutes. My mother laughing on a lounge chair. Timestamp 19 July 2025, 7:41 p.m. Snowmass. I said, "This is Mom's text to me on 19 July 2025, 7:29 p.m. My hip is hurting so much, I cannot walk to the pharmacy. Please transfer me 400 so I can Uber to CVS." I brought up the casino video. Black Hawk, red felt. Randy's arm around her waist. My mother in the red dress. Timestamp 24 July 2025, 9:02 p.m. I said, "This is Mom's text on 24 July, 8:57 p.m. I have not eaten today. Please transfer me 200. I'm so tired of being hungry." The room was silent. Alden had stopped leaning against the piano. He stood up straight of his own accord. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. If you are still with me, if you have ever asked yourself where the line is between a difficult mother and a mother who has stopped being one, please just take a second to write in the comments one sentence about how you knew or how you're still not sure. There is a version of this story happening in your own family or in someone you love, and I know because you found me, because you knew to click. Aunt Denise stood up. She took 2 steps toward my mother. She said, in a voice that was low and did not shake, "Deb, from today you are not my sister. You are somebody I share a mother with." Grandpa Walter, in his plaid shirt and his sailboat hat, stood up from his birthday chair. He walked around the coffee table without looking at the tablet or the papers or my mother. He walked to my side and took my hand. He said, "Deborah, get out of the house your mother and I built. Get out of it now. Do not come back to Sherwood Lane. If you have things to say to me, you can send them through Bradley." Uncle Bradley stood. He did not put on his suit jacket. He said, "Deb, any legal paperwork you need me to look at goes through my office email. My home is not open to you." Alden walked over from the piano and, gently but firmly, took my mother's elbow. He said, "Aunt Deborah, I'll walk you to your car." Grandma Judith rose from the arm of the couch, walked to me, took the medical letter out of her lap, and pressed her forehead to my forehead for a moment. She whispered, I asked you at 27. I'm sorry it took slapping you in a conference room for me to hear my own question again. I closed my eyes. My mother stood in the middle of the living room and, in a voice I had heard my entire life, screamed, "You are my daughter. You are my daughter. You belong to me." I opened my eyes. I looked at her. She was 56, and her mascara had run, and her lipstick had smudged, and she was breathing through her mouth. I saw her, maybe for the first time in my life, without a filter of guilt. She was a small woman who had been told she was owed something and had learned to demand it, and was now in the living room where she had grown up, being asked to stop. I said in the same calm voice I had used at 11:48 a.m. 18 days earlier, "No, Mom, not anymore." Alden opened the front door. Grandpa Walter did not turn around. Aunt Denise did not turn around. Uncle Bradley did not turn around. Grandma Judith did not turn around. My mother walked out onto the porch. The screen door closed behind her. Then the storm door. Then Alden's car door. Then, from the driveway, the sound of her sedan starting badly, twice before it caught. I went home to the Highland studio at 7 that evening. Rachel had left a small paper bag on my mat, a slice of chocolate cake from a bakery on Larimer, and a note that said, "For after." I ate the cake standing at my kitchen window, looking at the mountains. I put the fork in the sink. I did not turn on any music. I did not turn on the television. I sat on the floor with my back against the mattress on the floor for maybe an hour. I did not cry. I did not laugh. I felt, for the first time in my life, as if a door I had been leaning against for 23 years had swung inward, and I had fallen through and landed on carpet. On the 1st of September, I sent my mother $600, exactly as I had promised. She did not respond. On the 1st of October, I sent $600 again. Randy had started pulling away on August 10th. Amelia had seen my mother crying alone in her sedan outside Costco that afternoon after he stopped answering. By the 3rd week of August, he had vanished from her calls entirely. Later, Amelia found him in the Denver Singles 45-plus Facebook group with a new photo, cropped so you could not see the paint peeling off his rented duplex behind him. There was no mention of my mother in his profile. On the 1st of November, I sent the $600, and this time it came back the same day, marked "Returned to Sender by Recipient." I saved the confirmation. I did not send another dollar after that. My grandmother calls me every Saturday morning at 10. She reads me the crossword clues she cannot solve. I solve a few, she solves the rest. My Aunt Denise took me to a paint-your-own pottery place in September, and I painted a bowl the color of a peach with cinnamon in it because I wanted to keep the peach in my life and take it back from the sticky note memory. Dr. Bellingham sees me every 2 weeks. She has taught me the difference between guilt and grief. I'm still learning it. I sleep, mostly, though I still wake up at 5:30 out of habit and lie there for a minute before I remember that no one is in the next room needing anything. Some mornings, I make myself a peach with cinnamon. Some mornings, I just make coffee. Both count. My father, Jonathan, mailed me a card from Portland in October. It said, "I am so sorry I only came at Christmas. I love you." I keep the card in the same shoebox as the ones he mailed when I was 8. I answered him for the first time in a decade. I told him I understood that fear could make adults leave. I did not tell him it had made his leaving harmless. I told him that if he was ever in Denver, a peach-colored bowl would be waiting at my kitchen table. He wrote back in 3 days he is flying out in February. I still work at Crestline Media. Elaine Fessler renewed her contract in September and asked me to lead the pitch personally. She never mentioned the slap again after that Wednesday. She did not need to. Karen Alderman is still my boss, and every Friday she asks me how I am, and I tell her the truth. Some Fridays, the truth is tired. Some Fridays, the truth is better than last week. Karen never asks for more than what I give her, and on the 1st of December, when I sat down at my new kitchen table alone, I took out a piece of paper and I wrote in the careful print I use for anyone who might read it wrong, "I am not the ungrateful daughter she said I was. I am the daughter who set her free. And me too." I taped it to the fridge. I keep it there. It is enough.